Hello. Oh, there we go. It works now. Sweet. Thank you guys in the back. We can fix that more if we need to, the camera. But, all right. Good morning, everybody. How was the drive? Yeah, just a little slick. It's been a lot of snow past 30 days. Wow. It's fun, though, going out with the kids, sledding. All right, you can kill the music, please. Many thanks. There's a handout in the back, got colorful words on it, if that would be helpful to you, and some of the text outlined for this week. If you're online and you go to Church Center, the app, and go to our Ecclesiastes group, you can download this handout as a PDF, so that's all yours, so you can track along. So let's pray, friends. Father, thank you for making this place a place where your people gather. Thank you for gathering a people to yourself in Jesus and for promising to dwell amongst us here as a temple. We come here to serve you out of what you give to us, and we come here to listen to your voice. So speak and open our eyes to see the beauty, the glory, the majesty of Christ, and soften our hearts by your voice so that we would walk faithfully with you. Amen. All right. Welcome back to Ecclesiastes, week 6 now. We're right at about the halfway point of this class, and to bring back an illustration from week 1, this is kind of the general evil or bad section, so that's highlighting the bad path. The good path is highlighted, and then there's 3 examples. These are examples of the bad path. I think you'll intuit that, but the 3 examples are examples of living life on the bad path. So let's dig into verses, chapter 5, verse 8 through 12. So we're going to get an example actually right off the bat of what it looks like to live on the bad path. And then we're really going to understand right after that, what is it that puts you there? What is it that makes people live on that path of darkness? So here we go. Chapter 5, verses 8 through 12. If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the matter, for the high official is watched by a higher, and yet there are higher ones over them. But this is gain for a land in every way, a king committed to cultivated fields. Now pay close attention to this. This is like the bad path, bad way to live your life under the sun. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is hevel. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Sweet is the sleep of a laborer, whether he eats little or much. But the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. Now, our text, we don't see the word evil yet. It's a word we've seen before. It's the word in Hebrew, ra. But we'll see that in the next verse. Evil, in this context, of loving money, pursuing wealth, as that gain, that $10 bill over there. Evil is not necessarily moral in our text. So when it says, he who loves money will not be satisfied with money, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily morally wrong to in this case. It's just saying that's a bad life to live under the sun. That's a bad life to live. It's a foolish way to live. Selfish, self-exalting, self-defining, self-determining. And let's dig into that a little bit. The reason why loving money is a bad way to live under the sun, not necessarily morally wrong. It is, morally wrong. We'll get to that later. but just a bad way to live, is because you're never going to be satisfied with the thing you love. This is what makes that word hevel have some meaning here. Verse 10 should it should make you pause for a second and ask, what do I love? He who loves money will not be satisfied with money. That's rough to hear. Because the thing that you love so much in your heart, the thing you cherish, what's in your treasure chest, the text is saying, when you get it, you're not satisfied with it. Which means you love the wrong thing. Because you could just keep accumulating. If you love it so much, don't you think at some point you'd be satisfied? Don't you think at some point you'd be full? But that's what's hevel in this text. Again, hevel meaning smoke or mist. The person who gets money is not satisfied with it, which means they're believing like a lie or a delusion. They're delusional. They love the wrong thing, or you could just say they love something, and they get it, and they don't have enjoyment in it. We see this in that first example, at verses 8 and 9. Likely this is the connection back to money, is something that you can we're all aware of. It's helpful to know that this was going on a couple thousand years ago as well. The idea in verses 8 and 9 is corruption in governments. Believe it or not, that's been happening for a while, And the sense is that probably what it is that money is driving different officials, like money is what's driving, money and power drives governments to abuse the poor so they can gain more and more and more and more and more. And the problem is that there's always somebody higher up. There's always somebody higher up. And even before this, we've seen in Ecclesiastes, even the highest guy, the king, when he has it all, he says, well, that wasn't good enough. And so that love of money drives human beings to oppress one another, to abuse one another, because we're looking out for our own advantage. The interesting question is, why is it that the person who loves money, when they get it, why are they not satisfied? And the preacher makes a few observations of this. Verse 11, when goods increase, they increase who eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? The sense in this is, more money, more problems, right? We all know that, right? More money, more problems. This is like what Ecclesiastes is saying. Hevel, like we believe a lie. We think that if we just grab all that stuff, it's going to be a lot better, but it just slips through our fingers. Because the more money you have, maybe some of the sense of verse 11 is, the more creditors you have to pay, the more mouths you have to feed, the more bills you have to manage, the more possessions you have on your mind. There's more stuff now that you have to manage. Has anybody ever here think about, oh my gosh, it would be so easy if I was like dirt poor and I lived in a box, because I wouldn't have to worry about all the stuff I have. Just like stuff, and schedule, and I got to go here, and I got to take, we all complain about it with our cars that we love so much. Oh, we love our cars, and then we have to take it to the mechanic. It's like, oh, it always is breaking, and I got to manage this thing, and the money just goes out. But I thought the car was supposed to be for my pleasure. Now it's a curse. It's crazy. Again, money is not, or in this case, even the love of money, is not meaningless or vanity, the way that it's translated in your text often, but it's smoky or breath. It's an illusion. You think that money is going to satisfy, and it doesn't. You're disillusioned into thinking you know what you want. We'll move on for sake of time. Example number 2, chapter 5, verse 13 through 17. Chapter 5, verse 13 through 17. So here's another example of why loving money is not a good way to live your life under the sun. This guy's pursuit here of this is not a good way to live. I'm just helping you out, because I know, we're all going to say, no, we love God. But you live in America, which we just love money. We love it. I mean, the rest of the world loves money. But boy, we boast in our love of money in America. Like the American dream has that built in, yeah.
So I was reading about the Spanish conquistadors this week and how they were coming for several different things, but it specifically said that their desire to spread the gospel to the native people was trumped by their love for plundering the silver. And I think that's a really great example of how we live our lives a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, the crazy thing is, because this isn't like, all of us don't start our days with this in mind. But there's these moments where, I remember there was a class that I taught a while back, back when we were in that building, and it was something on money or like stewardship or something, and I wanted to bring in like $1,000 in $1 bills, just because it would look like a lot of money. And because there is something where, if this was a bigger quantity, but even then, if I just left that up there and just kind of walk out of the room, there's this subtle thing like, that's free money. Or what if I had that? It's only $10. I mean, it's $10, but it's only $10. And it's only a piece of paper, people. Anyhow. But I always wanted to bring like this giant stack of cash into a Sunday school, because then we feel it in our hearts, Like you see the person win the Powerball, and I know we're all like, that's going to ruin my life. It's going to ruin my relationships. I've seen it before. But boy, that'd be pretty cool if I had that. You feel the draw. And it can distract you from what you woke up to do that day. Yeah. So here's example number 2 of why loving money is a bad way to live. Verse 13, there is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun. Riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is the father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. And as he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again, naked as he came, and shall take nothing for his toil that he may carry away in his hand. This also is a grievous evil. Just as he came, so shall he go. And what gain is there to him who toils for wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness, in much vexation and sickness and anger. So here's where we see that term evil show up. Ra. This comes back to this, where you see again, like the connections back to Genesis. The Bible's not that complex. It's kind of complex, but it's like a few little themes and stories being fleshed out in multiple ways. So there's the tree in the garden, a tree of Tov and Ra, of good and bad, which seems to be, honestly, I think, is in a sense the tree in the garden might have a sense of, here's the good way to live for mankind on earth, and here's the bad way for mankind to live on earth. And when Eve takes the fruit, it's like you can't handle knowing those two paths. Because there's this thing of, when you know the bad way, it's like, ooh, wonder what that might be like. The sense is just trust God. Like whatever he says, trust that he knows what's best for you, rather than you taking wisdom for how to live. So here, when he says, the preacher says, this is a grievous evil I've seen. Remember, he's making observations, looking at, here's how people live their lives under the sun. Boy, this is grievous. That word grievous is the word for like becoming sick, or you're like really ill. Like this is just sickening to see. This is how bad it is. Again, it's not necessarily moral, but it's foolish and miserable. So the problem is, verse 13 and 14, is this idea of guarding your riches. Like, don't get at this. Like, I'm not going to let anybody touch this. I'm not going to spend it, because if I spend it, I don't have it anymore. Holding on, kept by their owner to their hurt. Guarding the riches implies, in some sense, probably some kind of anxiety or worry, or again, just foolishness. The idea of riches being, obtaining money is not so you just have money, but so you can do something with it. That's even the sense we saw back in verse 11, and all these orange words on your chart. The point of getting money is that so you can, in this case, buy food so you can eat and your body feels satisfied. Like the money's not good enough in itself. It's there to do something so then you can fill yourself up. But the problem is, this is how bad it gets. In our love of money, we get it and we're like, I don't want to let go of that. No way, I don't want to spend that. And the sad thing is that the preacher observes is sometimes people lose their money to some kind of bad luck or bad business, when they were so carefully guarding it. And then their kids have nothing to inherit. They don't leave anything for their kids. The evil in this is not that mankind was doing wrong. Now, he was stupid. Like whoever guards that, that's stupid. But the evil in this, the sickening thing in this, is that as man was pursuing this and then had it and then guarded it, he harmed himself and his family in so doing. See that? That's the sad thing is the result. The point of the money was to get some food so you could fill yourself up, maybe fill your kid's belly, and provide for their future. And instead, it all was lost to some kind of bad luck, bad venture, and now he has nothing, his son has nothing, they're not full. So they're empty, even though they had what they could have done to fill themselves up. So I think about multiple illustrations of how we probably all do this. I fall into this category. You work so hard for your kids, or you save so hard for your kids, but all the while you miss out in enjoying them. There are so many movies that are portrayed in this way, where, dad or mom are striving so hard. Once we get enough of this, even though you already have some, but once we get enough of this, then I'll spend time with my kids, then I'll love my wife or my husband, then we'll finally enjoy it. And the folly of it is, again, like back to verse 10, you're never going to have enough. Never going to be satisfied. You're likely never going to arrive. Something that happens later on in life is idolizing retirement. Okay, and people start this at my age, because I feel it because everybody, Dave Ramsey, that thing, and it's like, oh man, I got to get everything, so I have this big nest egg, and, wow, what's some crazy things he says about giving now, giving later. But anyhow, we're at 30 years old, I feel like I need to somehow manage my life so I have like $6 million when I'm 65, and then I can start living in some sense. And I know that's not what Dave Ramsey says or what a lot of people say they're Christians, but you can get that sense from people. For 35 years then, you don't live. And if you aren't living for 35 years, what do you think it's going to change when you get here to 65? It's not going to change. That's the sickeningness of this. The one who loves money, as it says in verse 15 and 16, cannot take any of it with him. So this is just even worse. So the man kept it all for himself. He didn't do anything with it. Then he lost it. But the sense is, if he would have been able to keep it, maybe he could have taken it with him at least. Maybe then he had that treasure. But the problem is, it says in verse 15, naked as you came from your mom's womb, you're leaving naked. You're not taking anything with you. They can dress you up really nice in the coffin, but you didn't take anything. You're just buried. You're going to go to dust again. That's who you are. So don't hoard it. Use it for life. It's helpful, I think, to think about death in reverse. So this says, the person who kept all that money, wanting to hold on to it, is the one who died and doesn't get to take any of it. But think about the last time you were at a funeral. So just ponder. This is the book of Ecclesiastes really calls us to ponder death a lot. The last time you were at a funeral, were you thinking, this is so sad. He doesn't have all his toys anymore. He can't play on his iPhone anymore. He doesn't have his fancy house anymore or his boat. That's so sad. He couldn't take his boat with him. That's not what you're thinking at the funeral, nor are you thinking, he can't buy me things anymore. She won't buy me gifts, or she won't take me out for lunch anymore. No, what you're sad about at the funeral is they're not there anymore. The person's gone. They're not there. The idea of Ecclesiastes, there's this book I read, I've shared a few quotes from it, Living Life Backwards, is start with, you guys are going this way, start with death. Think about death, so think about that funeral scene. Do people miss your stuff? Are they sad for you about all the stuff that you are pursuing right here? Or are they sad about you? They sad about the relationship that was lost. And then in light of realizing, the thing that's sad at a funeral is like the cutoff from relationship, right? There's something that's lost there. Go back into where you are in your life right now and live in light of that. Don't live like boats are the most important thing, or toys are the most important thing, or gifts are the most important thing, but live like the relationships that you have are the most important things. The sad thing, as it ends, this grievous, sickening evil, is that the person who loves riches spends all of his days eating, which is trying to fill yourself up, verse 17, trying to feel full and satisfied. But he eats in darkness, vexation, sickness, and anger. All that time trying to chase after something, and even when you eat to be able to fill yourself up, it never satisfies because you're living in a cloud in darkness, or you're always just trying to toil for more. You never can rest. So, question for the gang. Why are we, and I'd include us in this room. So when I say we, I mean us, not just, those stupid people outside of this building that don't know how to think. No, but we, as humanity, why are we so oblivious to the folly of seeking satisfaction in riches? So in our text, verse 16, chasing after this, having a lot of this, is likened to chasing after wind. That should be pathetic if like, hey, what do you do for a living? Like, I chase wind. Like, what's your greatest thing? If you could have anything like, I catch the wind. You're never going to get it. That's the sense. Why are we so stupefied into, why are we so oblivious to the folly of seeking satisfaction in that? Any reflections? Yeah.
I think the first thing that came to my mind was because we have a sinful nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay, flesh that out a little bit. So we have a sinful nature.
So that drives us maybe to pursue things that are not God-honoring or giving glory to God.
So there's a contrast, right? We're like, again, we wake up in the morning and then it's very quickly like we start pursuing something that's not God-honoring or not God-oriented. Yeah. Any other thoughts on why is it? Yeah.
Well, we put our hearts on things that are not God. So we, like you said, we think if we just get this one thing, we'll be satisfied. And then we could really turn our hearts to God. And I don't think I don't like have that conversation in my head. Okay, if I get, this better chair, I'm going to be able to be more comfortable and then I'll really be able to honor God in my comfort. But I think our drives tend to go that way because our focus is not there, it's here. Just, there's a song that says, my soul just cleaves to the dust, to the earth. And we're earthbound.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what Terry said about how, so you maybe don't, but I do. I fall into this category all the time. Like, God, if I have this, then I'll love you, honor you, follow you, do something. If I had $1 million, think about, because I know what's good for people, think about all the generosity I would have if you just gave me $1 million today. It kind of goes back to that retirement thing. If for 35 years of your life, you're not used to like just enjoying life a little bit, you're probably not going to have like a habit of enjoyment likely later on in life. And I think about it like for my own like things with my gut and trying to figure out health issues, it's always like, but God, if we solved this, I wouldn't be so hindered in things, And the funny thing, Sarah was, my wife's amazing because she was just reflecting this week, like, maybe it's good that you have that weakness because, like, the more that you have that, the less likely maybe you are to do all kinds, like maybe it's limiting the amount of ministry you can do for the Lord, and maybe that's a good thing so you don't get a hot head, Like maybe it's good to be a little bit plagued so you can't do so much that you think, oh man, look at everything I'm doing for God, and just be so centered on yourself. God gives us weaknesses for his glory. Let's look at example number 3. We're going to jump over the good section. We'll come back to that in a moment. This is chapter 6, verse 1 through 6. There's more evil, more bad. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind. A man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires. Yet, God does not give him power to enjoy or eat them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is Hevel. It is a grievous evil, sickening. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he also has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he, for it comes in Hevel, and it goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. Moreover, it has not seen the sun or known anything, yet it finds rest rather than he. Even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good, do not all go to the one place. So, back in example number 2 is, you had all the wealth, but you lost it. Now here's this one. What if you had all the wealth? What if you had, how many is it? Is it 100 kids? What if you had 100 kids, a big, joyful family? You lived 2,000 years. What if you had all that? Then you'd have the good life, right? Then you'd be satisfied. But the preacher observes something, like there's something missing. You can have all that you desire. Everything good comes from God, like all good gifts. This is what I think he's saying when he says in verse 2, a man whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor. It's not like we got it for ourselves, but God gives good gifts. God gave these things, yet God did not give him the power to enjoy them or to eat them. So again, fill yourself up and just find that satisfaction. And the preacher says, this also is this smoky thing. You lose it all or you have it all for as long as you want. Both of those, apart from a distinct gift of God to be able to enjoy them, is Hevel and sickeningly bad. The preacher says that a stillborn child is better than this man who would have it all. Now, I know it's kind of graphic, but the point is it's that bad. It's so sad to see somebody, if they just live 2,000 years, have all this stuff, have everything, and they don't ever enjoy any of it. The preacher's saying that it would be better to be a stillborn child in the sense that the stillborn child, when he comes into the world, he comes in Hevel, meaning just like a breath, and departs in darkness. So their life is like that, right? So that's what a stillborn is. It's really sad. It's grieving. But the thing is, the stillborn has rest. They rest in their death, and they never had to see this with their eyes. They didn't have to come, because that's what the preacher's saying. Man, this is taxing. I see people who hoard the wealth and then lose it, and now I see people, the rich, who just have it all, and they're not satisfied. I mean, this is really taxing to look on this, what mankind does with God's gifts. They don't ever enjoy them. And he says, it might just be better if you never really had a life to see this. This is just miserable to look on. We've all probably met someone who's wealthy, who doesn't seem content or satisfied or at rest. You might meet them, and at first, because they're wealthy or whatever, and there's this outward persona of joy and freedom, they can just do whatever they want, go out to eat wherever they want, they have the fancy car, they have this nice house, they can go on vacations. Oh, they must be so happy. And the longer you get to know them, you can kind of taste the bitterness in them, or it just never satisfies, or there's always a wanting for more. They're always trying to fill themselves up. Even though they have everything, they're never full. And this draws our attention to the fact that the stuff is not the answer to that longing, that hunger, that thirst in humanity. The stuff is not the answer. It's not enough, because you can have it all and not be satisfied. The answer is God's grace. This is what we see in verse 5:18 through 20. So let's look at this. There is a satisfying and full, joyful life that can be experienced under the sun. Verse 18, behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil which one toils under the sun, the few days of life that God has given him. For this is his lot. Just pause really quick. What he's saying is, how about instead of saying, I'm going to work for something, and then once I get it, then I'll eat, then I'll be full, then I'll find satisfaction. So my work is like a means to an end. What if instead you just found joy in your work? What if kind of the enjoyment of good work was the end? What if you got your paycheck and went and bought some food and ate it and were satisfied and said, thank you, God? Wake up the next day, work, get your paycheck, get some food, wake up the next day and be satisfied in your labor rather than something you think your labor is going to bring you later on. Verse 19, everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them, that's the word eat, to eat them, to consume them, and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil, this is the gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. So again, like I've said before, this is not about toiling for gain, working so hard in your life to gain something. But the secret of the good life lived under the sun is receiving a gift. If you see, this is the gift I think God gives us when we are able to enjoy or to eat the wealth, to consume it and be satisfied in it. The gift that God gives us is the gift of seeing it as a gift. It wasn't something we took. It wasn't something we deserved. It was just something given to us. And then you can enjoy it freely. You don't feel like you have to manage it or hoard it. You find the good life not through manufacturing for yourself the idea of a satisfying life. You don't know on your own what a satisfying life is. You don't. You have no clue what would satisfy you. But rather you receive the lot that God has given you. You see that in verse 18. Whatever God gives you, whether it's little or much, that's your lot in life. Verse 19. If you can enjoy it, you learn to accept your lot and rejoice in your toil. Just whatever God gives you, that's what he's decided to give you. If you could accept that, boy, you are on the path to like a peaceful, restful life. The good life is not through the love of money, but the enjoyment of God in his kindness to you. That's the good life. Accepting God as God, dust as dust, and then the fact that you are blessed dust, that he has been kind to you. There's the secret to the good life. Not raising yourself up thinking, I'm a God, I know what's good for me, I'll go get what's good for me. But rather, the good life lived under the sun is, he's God, I'm dust, he's breathed life into me, he's given me some food, he's given me a family. Thank you. That's the good life. Here is the summary that the preacher makes, and we will get our candle for this. Chapter 6, verse 8 to 12. Sorry, 7 to 12. Right at the end of your page. All of the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. It's very much like that verse 10. All of the toil of man is for his mouth, wants to fill up, yet his appetite is not satisfied, never feels full. Verse 8, for what advantage has the wise man over the fool, and what does the poor man who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This also is hevel and a striving after wind. Whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known what man is, that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more hevel. And what is the advantage to man? For who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his hevel life, which he passes away like a shadow? For who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? So in wrapping up this section, the preacher reflects on that always filling up yourself and never being full. Like your stomach, your soul. It's just always like, oh, more. You could be stuffed to the brim and you're like, more. That didn't do it. That didn't satisfy it. Verses 10 to 12, because we don't have time to get into every word. The general sense of 10 to 12, that last section we just read, is don't overthink it, friends. What's come has already been named. It's known what man is. The more words, the more hevel. Who knows what's good for man to do under the sun? The idea is don't try to figure this out. Don't try to figure out on your own what you should do with your life. Again, we don't know. This search has been made since basically Cain and Abel. I mean, even Adam and Eve did it. I think we know what. God said don't do this, but aha, I have a good idea. Let's do it. That's what we do. This is what philosophy courses, you just dig into all this stuff, and over and over and over and over and over again, like all the stuff about secularism, relativism, atheism of our day isn't anything new. Everyone's trying to figure out what is it that we should do with our lives under the sun, who's in control, what should we pursue, what satisfies. The idea of Ecclesiastes is don't try to figure it out. Don't try. There's been so much ink spent on this, and no one's arrived at it. You will not find a better way to live than in what God prescribes. I think the sense of this is in verse 9. I think this is a beautiful line. Better, which is the word tov, good. Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. So my illustration in this is this is just think about how messed up this would be. On a wedding day, we do this kind of thing. And you're standing at the front, the man, unless if it's some modern wedding and maybe the girl stands up there and the guy comes from the back. Whatever, but you're standing up front, the guy, and I'm looking, and it's time for the doors to open and my bride to walk down the aisle. And instead of looking at my bride and be like, oh man, look what God's given me today. What a grace, what a blessing. I'm looking around at other girls in the room oh, well, she's kind of pretty. Well, she's kind of pretty. Well, she's kind of, this wandering, I have a prize. It says I've been blessed by God in the scriptures. And I'm well, there's other girls in the world, so maybe your appetite just wanders. The sense is better is the sight of the eyes. God has given you your wife, enjoy her. God has given you your husband, enjoy him. If you got kids, God has given you kids, enjoy them. Enjoy the kids you have, not the kids you don't have, right? If you don't have kids, enjoy not the kids you not have. I think you understand what I'm saying. If you're sitting in this room right now, enjoy this. If you're sitting at home, enjoy where you are at home. Find the goodness of the lot. This is your lot right now, friends. Do you want to know what to do with your life? Sit in Sunday school at Overland Hills Church in the worship center. There's the secret to your, decision-making in the will of God. Here we go. We're in it. Rather than, I could be at a different church, or I could have stayed home because it's snowy and maybe I could have used that for the live stream excuse kind of thing, or whatever. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying live stream's wrong. I'm just saying these are the things where our appetites wander, right? Because I was thinking that coming here today. I was thinking, man, if I wasn't teaching, maybe we could just stay home today. That would be kind of nice, be cozy. But we just wander rather than, here's what God's given you to do, receive it, and find goodness in that. Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. Because the problem is, you get this, and it's not good. Because you're there's more. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Again, think about Eve in the garden. The sight of the eyes, everything good. Everything good. It's defined by God as good. This is good. That's good. This is good. That's good. Now it's very good. Then, Adam doesn't have a wife. That's not good. Oh, here's a wife. Oh, it's good. Whoa, all the goodness. But that tree, there's one more thing. We can't have that. I want that. It's no, just enjoy the thing you have. Because again, just think, I just want you to see the connections. The way the tree even is described as a delight to the eyes and would be taste good for food, right? It's an appetite that we have. Our hearts are restless. They just chase after things. Find satisfaction in what you have, not what you don't have. I read this a few weeks back. Ian Provan in his commentary on Ecclesiastes. From the very beginning, human beings have chosen to transgress the boundaries in search of something more. And here's where the comes. The more does not exist. So here's maybe a proverbial way that you could say it. You will never have more than what you have. I know that's kind of like weird thinking, but do you get that? Like you don't decide for your life. God's in charge of the world. He's the one who gives righteous people and unrighteous people everything that they have. God's the one who does that. You will not add anything to your life that God won't add. You will not take away anything from your life that God won't take away. He's in charge. Read the book of Job, another wisdom book. He's the one in charge. You won't have more than you have. So, as in the past few weeks, I want to draw your attention to what the preacher is seeing in Ecclesiastes, what he's observing about life lived under the sun. He's observing something that we see more clearly in Jesus. I think he's like, this isn't exactly but the sense of what he's doing. He's seeing Jesus. He's seeing wisdom in Jesus down the line, a couple hundred or 500, 800 years, however long it is. He's seeing something in Jesus, in God, wisdom in him. The idea is don't go searching for treasure. Don't go searching for life, gain, and fulfillment. So you are too blind to even be able to find what you think you want. You wouldn't be able to find it. You're blind like this. That's something Jesus teaches. You're too dumb to know where to look. If you weren't blind, let's say your eyes were open. Now I can see. Now I'll be able to find what I think I want. You're too dumb. We're all too foolish. We go look in all the wrong places for the satisfaction we think we want. Let's say you did find the treasure, the goal at the end of the line. You're too weak to lay hold of it. Think about that. Think about the treasure of Jesus. You're even too weak to lay hold of Jesus. And finally, let's say that you could lay hold of the prize, the treasure that would satisfy your soul. Let's say you could grab it. The sense is your appetite wanders too much, you would let go of it in search of something else, right? We all know the people who have left said, I believe in Jesus, and then left because their appetite took them somewhere else. It's a sad thing, but this is just true. It's the Jesus in the parable of the soils, right? Something else more shiny shows up. And you said, I took hold of Jesus. I got him. Oh, wait, that looks cool. Let's go over there. That's better than Jesus. Rather, the beauty of the Bible, of life in Jesus, of life in Christ, of true life, is that God brings the treasure to you. He gives it to you. Like, it's not over here in some ethereal place that you're trying to find it, but the treasure comes to you. Gain comes to you. Satisfaction comes to you. And he gives it to you in Jesus. And so this is where I just want to draw our attentions again back to what I'm calling now the Ecclesiastes of the New Testament, Philippians. So just think about the contrast that Paul makes in Philippians 3, verses 7 and 8. Now, he's just listed out all of these things in his life that he sought to gain. Prestige, education. People would look on him well. He was the highest of highs, the Jew of Jews. And he says this, whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ. The lesson is, we think we know what we want in our treasure box over here. We have a pretty good sense because our heart's yearning for something. And the thing we're so blind, so dumb, so weak to grasp is what we need to satisfy is God. We need God. That's what we're made for. We're made in his image. We're made to be satisfied in him. And so what's crazy is he gives us himself. And when he gives us himself, just like Paul in Philippians, everything else that we are pursuing over here isn't like, well, that's nice, but Jesus is better. No, that's a loss. That's a hindrance in the way of enjoying Jesus. That's garbage now because I'm full. I don't want to add anything because that's just going to take away from Jesus. I am satisfied in Jesus. Paul goes on in Philippians 4. I think this is what the preacher is trying to get us to say, is to receive the gift that God's given you rather than try to pursue something. Philippians 4, 11 to 13. Not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. So, what's the exhortation today? What's the lesson? Cherish the gift of Jesus. Cherish that God has given you everything you need in Jesus. Within that too, cherish your lunch today, cherish your family today. All those things, gifts, do you ever think about it, are ways of enjoying one another in a relationship, right? Like, so you get gifts for your spouse, or you get gifts for your kids, not just like so that they're happy apart from you, satisfied apart from you, but it's a way of enjoying one another through that thing. So we got Waldo, he turned 4. We got him a new drum set. And him playing it brings joy to us. Him enjoying that drum set brings joy to us. And he gets it too, because he wants to bring us in the room. He wants to play for us. That gift is a way of us enjoying one another. So don't become like this, like Gnostic, like where you remove yourself from the world and say, all I need is the Bible and Jesus. I don't need food. I don't need family. I don't need a car. No, those things are good gifts that God gives you to enjoy him and his people with. So in Jesus, your appetite is satisfied. I want to read you just one psalm and then we'll go. Psalm 63. And just thinking about the hunger in man's heart and the way that God satisfies by seeing him. That's what when you have Jesus, like you see God, and it's the most beautiful, perfect sight that nothing else looks good. There's no more appetite. Like you found the best thing in the world. You think about sorry, I'm ranting now. Think about the parable Jesus said. There's a man who found a treasure in a field. And he went and buried that treasure, went home, sold everything he had, and bought the field because the treasure was so good. There's nothing of like, I wonder if there's another treasure. No, it's just, I found the best thing in the world, and I'm just going to go have that, enjoy that. Psalm 63. O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So, what should you do when you're thirsty, when you're hungry, when you feel your appetite? So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory, because your steadfast love is better than life. My lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands. Last verse 63, verse 5. My soul will be satisfied as with fat and rich food, and my mouth will praise you with joyful lips. Amen. Thank you, God, for Jesus. That's all I got. Just one thing for you for homework for next week. So I'd encourage you, read Ecclesiastes 7. Ponder it, write out some observations. Ecclesiastes 7, just so you can have some thoughts. It's kind of a strange text. There's one other thing. If you really want to be above and beyond, even you on live stream, everybody, if you want to be super homework people, and maybe you could have some really intriguing reflections, I want you to visit, that's what it is. So I want you to visit this week, maybe for 5 or 10 minutes, go drive to a cemetery and sit there for about 5 or 10 minutes, just in silence, and ponder the fact that very soon you're going to be put 6 feet under in a place very much like that. Just like sit there for just in silence, 5 or 10 minutes and think, that's going to be me really soon. That's your homework, okay? That's all we got. Thank you.